They told me my son was behind. They told me that he needed to be retained, held back from going to the next grade. And they were right. He was behind. But what they didn't know is that this same little boy would one day stand on the stage as his class valedictorian. This is that story. This is the story of how I stopped trusting the system and became my son's best advocate. And if you've ever been told that your child is struggling, then this is the story of how you can become the hero in your child's comeback. So let's go back to the beginning. You see, I enrolled my youngest son in a Montessori school. It had marketed itself as child centered, self directed. It just sounded absolutely perfect, but it wasn't. For my son, it was a lack of structure, it was a recipe for failure. I remember sitting in those parent teacher conferences, hearing them say that he wasn't doing well. And I just kept thinking it's going to get better. They'll make it get better. You see, I was a certified teacher myself, working full time, but I had outsourced my hope to a system, to a structure that was the complete opposite of what my child needed. At the end of the year, they told me he was going to be held back. Those are not the words that any parent would want to hear. So I was in shock. I was embarrassed. More than that, though, I felt like I had failed him. I can think back to being in the parent teacher conference and looking at him and thinking that he wasn't just a student, he was a baby who actually looked stressed. And when I tried to help him at home, using the strategies that they recommended, I realized that I was basically perpetuating this child's misery. That's when I knew that I had to make a change. And the first change had to start with me. I had to get rid of this overwhelming emotion of him being my baby so that I could think clearly and see that he wanted to succeed. So, how do I help him succeed? And I had to accept a hard truth that in school, he was becoming a statistic. So I made a bold decision. I pulled him out of that school. I decided that he would not return the next year. I decided that he needed a fresh start with fresh eyes, teachers who would not look at him through the lens of his past failures. So I enrolled him in the public school, a place where the structure was exactly what he needed for that season in his life. And then I came up with my plan. Now, my plan was simple. We started out with the foundation. I had to take him to get his eyes checked. And sure enough, just like me at his age, he needed glasses. The second part of my plan is I stopped trying to force learning time. Instead, I found unsuspecting pockets of time at home to feed him academically without that stress and anxiety that he appeared to be having. The third thing that I did in my plan is I stopped fighting him on what to read. We went to the library and I discovered that he loved books that came in a series. He loved following a character's journey. So the library, well, that became his second home. And a funny thing happened when he realized that learning did not have to equal anxiety or stress. This child took off. He really started to soar. So the only stress that was left was me trying to stay awake for one more chapter. This young man got organized, he had confidence, and we basically became a team. So after a successful year, he was promoted to the second grade, but in the back of my mind, I knew I had to make this right. So here's the next part of the plan. I met with the principal and I made my request. I wanted my son placed in his correct grade level. So the principal told me all about the hoops we would have to jump through, the exams we would have to pass, both the second and third grade exams. Those are the hoops that he had to jump through at the same time in order for him to be placed in his correct grade level. Well, my son was so engaged and so vested that he was ready. So he did the work. He passed every test. And at the start of the next school year, when his old classmates from the second grade saw him on the fourth grade hallway, they were confused. They just saw a kid who skipped a grade because he was so smart. You see, those kids, they didn't know the backstory, but my son knew. And that confidence changed his entire life. My son found out how to learn, and we both learned that anxiety and learning cannot take place at the same time. If this story resonates with you in any way, then know that your child's story does not have to be defined by a label that the school gives them. You can be your child's best advocate. You can be your child's hero. So, if you're ready to start writing that hero story or the family comeback story, I've created something to help you get started. It's a simple ebook called Effective Effortless Reading Progress. It's full of the strategies that I use in those pockets of unsuspecting time to help my son. You can get this ebook for just $47 at the link below. And if you want to work with me directly to create a full turnaround plan for your child, just like I did for mine, then book a free private clarity call with me at the very same link. Thank you for listening. Now let's get to work.